opinions expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of Shaw Cable Systems or of the station. Through our access policy, we provide the opportunity for community groups and individuals to express their points of view. Welcome to Winnipeg Direct on Shaw, the show that looks into big issues, current events, and concerns that affect Canadians. I'm your host, Megan Duffy, and joining me on the panel is Jeff Bruati from North Kildonan Ward City Councillor, Jennifer Walker, Marketing Director from Foreplay Sports Bar, and from the CJOB Friday Entertainment panel, Miles Jones. With the announcement on May 31st, 2011 that NHL hockey was returning to Winnipeg, many residents responded with public demonstrations of support and celebration. While fans in Atlanta mourned the loss of their heroes, Winnipeggers were cheering the return of hockey to Manitoba. Now, before we dive into our own NHL team returning to Winnipeg, first we're going to ask our panel about their feelings towards the Stanley Cup game between Boston and Vancouver. So, Jeff, I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
Boston obviously won. How'd you feel?
Well, I'm glad that it was actually an NHL city that won. You know, again, if a Tampa Bay or a San Jose or something won, it's second, third page in the sports section. It's not as big a deal. I mean, an original six city, Boston, I think is great. I mean, I think both, I was joking about it yesterday, and it was such a catastrophe that happened, but I was joking yesterday that both cities had to prepare for riots. Again, the catastrophe we saw yesterday night was appalling.
But wouldn't you say the Vancouver fans are a little more into it than the Boston fans overall during the whole playoffs?
I mean, overall, I think, sure, Vancouver was a bigger city, but again, wait till Saturday's parade. Boston's a great sports city. It's a great hockey city, so it wasn't all bad news. Again, more Canadians, I think, on the Bruins lineup. It was a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Jen, dare I ask who you were cheering for?
Definitely Vancouver. I mean, after the Olympics, I just really go for all the Canadian teams. You got to just show your national support.
But do you think we should be cheering for Vancouver just because they are Canadians when Boston clearly has more Canadian players? Or do you like Vancouver just because you like the city?
Well, there are tons of Canadian players on the Boston team, but they're not playing for a Canadian team.
Correct.
So you still have to root for the home base, I guess.
Miles?
No, I would love to have seen, in fairness, I'd love to have seen Vancouver win this. I wouldn't question that. I believe there's 16 Canadians that skated last night for Boston, which is an amazing stat. Milan Lucic, obviously his opportunity to win one in Vancouver as a Vancouver born and bred kid is fantastic too. So sure, he won it for Boston. I'm sure the world would rather have seen it win it for Vancouver. The thing that disappointed me the most, to be honest with you, was the play of the Sedin twins. I mean, here's a couple guys that have been two of the best players in the league, and they just did not show up when they needed them. If they had shown as much spirit as the fans after the game, they probably would have won the cup. But they didn't, and you know, that was the end of it.
Would you say it was safe to say that the team gave up after the first couple goals?
No, I don't think they gave up. I just think at the end of the day, Tim Thomas was unsolvable. They just could not get anything past Tim Thomas. He just showed from the opening whistle, and you know, he just played so much better than Luongo over the course of the series. It wasn't really even a question mark as to who the better goalie was.
I mean, the trend really was that as soon as they started making goals, the goals were just flying in. So it was almost like a bit like they gave up. So,
Jeff, what does it mean for a city when they bring home that Stanley Cup?
The civic pride is just immense. I mean, last year when Chicago won and Jonathan Toews was at City Hall, the feelings were just immense. I mean, here's a hometown boy bringing home the Stanley Cup. Having the team, your home team win it, is that much bigger and better. So the civic pride would be fantastic.
So we're bringing back the NHL to Winnipeg. Miles, in your opinion, do you think that the city is thinking with their heads or their hearts?
You know, in fairness, I think they're thinking with their heads. You know, you got 13,000 season tickets sold in a matter. It would have been a matter of minutes if they hadn't done the pre-sales. They had to do the pre-sales to justify those of us that have supported the Moose for the decades. You know, but I look at it like this: 8,000 people are willing to pay to sit on a waiting list to get tickets. That's not including the people that transfer out in and out on their own seats who are doing those things. I mean, these are going to be willed to your children. That's how big this is. And, you know, I think from my standpoint, it's an amazing part for the city, and I think it just shows that we're ready to go. The best part of the whole thing is the fact that the Bombers are now selling, they're over 20,000 seats for this fiscal year, which, I mean, again, it's the largest they've ever seen. So it just shows this is a true sports town.
We are definitely supporting the teams. Now, Jeff, in your opinion, what can we learn from losing the Jets?
I think people realize now that they need to support the home team. Win or lose, game in, game out, season in, season out. Montreal is famous for getting on bandwagons, getting off bandwagons. I think True North did the right thing, making sure people put in a 5-year commitment. But when you see how many people are on this waiting list, somebody drops off at some point along the way, those spots would be filled up really quickly. We've got the right size arena, right size market, and I think there's a business case that True North is going to be very successful. And I don't think we're going to let a team leave us again. Now,
Miles, do you think that Winnipeg can now be considered as a big city?
I've always considered Winnipeg a big city. I think that debate leads to those from Toronto and Vancouver that choose not to recognize the reality of what we're doing here in Manitoba, what we've been doing. This is a great place to be. It's an even better place to be now, obviously, with the team coming back. And I'm excited for the businesses around there, especially Foreplay and the bars and the Moxies that do the things there, and all the Earls and all that jazz. That's going to be fantastic for our business, and it's fantastic for for Winnipeg. It's going to be a real sense of pride for this town.
Well, I can speak to that of having spent the last 10 years in Toronto as well. Really getting the NHL team back, I've really seen Winnipeg for the first time, in my opinion, come alive, really, and gather together.
Me too, definitely.
And it was really exciting for me, being a young professional, being back in Winnipeg now, to see how excited everybody really was and come together like that. I've never really seen that in Winnipeg before.
I mean, I think Winnipeg is growing so quickly that it's keeping all of the younger generation professionals here, which is nice to see. Now, Jeff, in your opinion, what are 1 or 2 key building blocks you think that the team needs to focus on to keep them here and to keep them going and thriving as a franchise?
Well, I mean, I think having a team on the ice that actually does well is certainly going to help. Again, I don't think we're, like Montreal fans, we're going to abandon the team if they have some off games or off seasons. We're Bomber fans. We suffer enough. I think we show our pride, and we're buying 20,000 plus tickets after a rather rough go of it in the last couple seasons. So I don't see that as an issue. I think it's going to be great for the businesses downtown. I mean, the Moose have done a really good job, as sort of anchor and launch tenants of the MTS Center, being the most regular tenant and users of that building. I think downtown's going to flourish that much more. A lot of business is going to get done at NHL hockey games. Almost said Jets. NHL hockey games. There's going to be a lot of good things going on. People are going to be meeting. People are going to go for dinner and drinks and stuff in the immediate vicinity, whether it's at Foreplay or Tavern United. I think it's
definitely going to liven up downtown.
It is, and despite the ticket price being that much higher, I think that I'd love to see a lot of families go, but again, initially, especially, I think it's to be the corporate people that are going to be at these games, and they have a lot of money too.
Corporate people have families too.
They have families too, but I mean, they're going to spend a lot of money too in the downtown right after. I mean, it's not coming in and coming out of the game. They're going to stay downtown after work 45 times a year. I think it's very positive.
Miles, what do you think are some key elements that need to be in place to ensure the team does thrive?
Well, from an economical standpoint, I guess you have to look at the dollar, and as long as we maintain the dollar relatively close to even at 90 cents, I think we'll be fine. Once it starts dropping to the 80 cents or even back down to the 65 to 70 cent like they were when they left, then you're going to start to see some serious concern. But that will be for all Canadian teams. That won't just be a Winnipeg-based thing. You know what? We've got an ownership group that knows exactly what they're doing. They are never going to place themselves in a bad situation. They wouldn't have done this. They've done their homework. I really don't see this failing. I don't see how it could fail. Save a catastrophe on the sense that they lose everything but 10 games in a year or something, and then you can see people sort of fall off the wagon. But this is Winnipeg. We've always supported teams through and through, and I think that this is going to happen again.
I think really the bottom line is that we learned from our mistake the first time, and I mean the loss of jobs, loss of just spirit in the city, etc. I don't think they're going to let that happen. Think about Toronto Maple Leafs. They never win anything, and they're the strongest team.
That's true. Right? Well, in your opinion, Jen, I mean, you get to see all the fans. You're right with them, working with them. If we don't win, let's say any games, do you think we're still going to have the support?
I think we're still going to have the support right now. Just watching everybody waiting for this team to come back. I mean, when the Jets were here the first time, they weren't the best team either. They did end up leaving, obviously, but I think it doesn't matter this time. People are going to still stand by their team.
What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I mean, look at Minnesota Wild. I mean, they lost the North Stars years ago. The Wild, I understand, do phenomenally well. I mean, I've tried a couple times to buy tickets, and there's not much available except for in the nosebleeds. So I think we're going to be a very strong hockey market.
So, Miles, what do you think about the whole VLT situation? Do you think that they're relying too much on outside sources, or do you think it's a good idea that they're giving that additional money to the team?
My understanding is, again, it's revenue that the team gets. It's a lottery situation that they're going to help out with. If you want lotteries to stroke them a check and call it for rink boards for whatever it is, or you want to provide that opportunity elsewhere, they're going to do it either way. So my opinion is, let there be VLTs. I mean, they're everywhere else. Why not there?
Yeah, Jen, what do you think?
I agree. Why not add some more of that financial support? I mean, they did it right by having people already signing up for 5 years to fill the arena right now. And with the amount of people on the waiting list, paying $50 to be on the waiting list, that's another $40,000 people have spent just to be on a waiting list we could fill another arena with. So for the next while, I think we're pretty strong and good.
It is nice to see that huge support for our new team. So let's say that 5 years, 10 years down the road, the team is not doing as well as we think. Jeff, who do you think should step up to the plate and chip in? Would you want the city to chip in? Would you think the province should chip in a bit? Who's this going to come down on?
Again, I don't think we're going to get to that point, but I mean, in the catastrophic circumstance that we do, I don't think it's the role of government to come forward. Again, I mean, if we have 65-cent dollars again, like we had in the 90s, I mean, we're not the only city that suffers. Again, things like revenue sharing between the league, that may have to come back into play in a bigger way. But again, I don't think it should be taxpayers that's paying for it.
Miles, what do you think?
You know what? I sort of agree. At the end of the day, this needs to stand up as a business model first, and it does, and it will. I ultimately agree with that 100%. That said, I mean, you know, if you get in a situation where we're going to help out, we probably should help out. We've helped out the Bombers considerably over the years, and
Absolutely,
I think that at the end of the day, the NHL probably at least deserves the same shake.
I totally agree with you guys. So now Vancouver streets are packed. They're flooded, full of people. Will that ever happen in Winnipeg? Jeff, what do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if we go through a big playoff role, I think even for the first game, I mean, everyone's going to want to be downtown. They're going to want to have that energy. Even if you're not one of the blessed 15,000 people that are inside the MTS Center, you're going to want to be at places like Foreplay or somewhere else downtown. The energy is going to be amazing. Yeah, I think Winnipeg fans are going to be huge, whether it's at Portage and Main or the Forks or wherever. I think we would have a strong showing. The thing that worries me is, again, should things not go the way we want in a playoff game, that the small number of people that are not hockey fans but rabble-rousers will cause problems. That's what scares me, and again, we need to be better prepared for that than Vancouver was.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
Of course.
We'll be right back with more hockey talk right after this.
The opinions expressed on the program you are watching are not necessarily those of Shaw Cable Systems or of the station. Through our access policy, we provide the opportunity for community groups and individuals to express their points of view.